Kat Fitzpatrick here with a reading from For the Love of Vietnam, a war, a family, a CIA official, and the best evacuation story not yet heard. And this is November 1974. In late November, my mother was contemplating how bad the Vietnam situation seemed when my father suggested a short road trip. "We should all go visit Bien Hoa soon," he said. "Well, it's just a short drive and only 15 miles or so." "But why should we go soon?" my mother asked. "Well, we better go before we can't go anymore," he replied. Bien Hoa was home to one of the largest military bases in South Vietnam and had been a primary target in the 1968 Tet Offensive, a climactic attack on American and South Vietnamese forces by the Viet Cong. As a strategic holding, it was a regular target for military skirmishes, and if the uneasy peace continued to escalate, it would certainly be closed for business sooner rather than later. However, it wasn't the airfield my father wanted to visit, but the town, for sightseeing, lunch, and some shopping, perhaps. Plans were made for the following week. The day before, though, my mother had second thoughts. What if it was Get Americans Day in the little town? She had just learned from another CIA wife that there was a random but persistent Viet Cong system of establishing such times. "But this seems to be a city of rumors," she wrote home. "One does not know what to believe." Instead of going to Bien Hoa, she planned another trip to Vung Tau, the favorite beach spot for embassy families in 1974 and 75, and for military personnel before the ceasefire. It was indeed a beautiful spot and holds a favorite place in my heart as one of the wide open spaces that seemed as safe as any place could be. Michelle, however, on the other hand, tells a different story. She and another 15-year-old friend were enjoying the chance to roam and had taken off alone down the wide, silvery beach. Thinking they might explore the cool shade of the trees bordering the sand, they headed toward them. Just then a soldier appeared, and out of the dark shadows, he exclaimed gutturally, Michelle and her friend froze in their tracks, and the man in uniform repeated his insane barks. He shook his gun at them in the tempo of his grunts. He shot out a warning in words that they could not understand, but that got his meaning. "Do not come any farther, girls, do not." My sister said that after that, beach visits were never quite the same. In fact, nothing in South Vietnam was ever going to be quite the same again after November 1974, though no one at the embassy could get past their presuppositions enough to see the writing on the wall. A great deal of military intelligence was being received, indicating communist troop movements, but while the information about the North Vietnamese preparing an offensive was endlessly poured over, the analysts and leaders could not come to an agreement about what it meant. On the Washington front, Kissinger raised the issue of Vietnam in meetings with both China and the Soviet Union, but communist superpowers had decided that Saigon regime was doomed and were now preoccupied with their growing rivalry for increased influence in the region. But they were not interested in discussing diplomatic solutions with the USA. Meanwhile, North Vietnamese reinforcements were quietly but quickly moving down their well-established trail systems, filling into position in the south. Their approach did not appear as methodical as in the past, but their fixation on taking Saigon as soon as possible had propelled them into high gear more quickly than anyone had anticipated. In contrast to their usual meticulous methods of preparing for an offensive, they were losing no time. They were certainly intent on their goal, not just to get Americans completely out of Vietnam once and for all. So that was the state of things when I lived there in 1974. However, meanwhile, things were going on, such as basketball. Here are a few excerpts from my mom's letters about how the basketball games were going over the year. The first one is from October 25th. "The boys are playing basketball, and the last 2 Sundays have played against Chinese teams from Cholan. We lost both games, but our team consists of a few that want to play, and the kids meet with their coach twice a week for organized practice. Chris played almost the whole game and did very well. It is his best sport. If you think I got excited during baseball games, you should have heard me during basketball games." I kind of remember that. Now, on November 12th, she wrote, the beat goes on with basketball, games each Sunday. The 10-speed bikes are fixed, so now Chris and Mike ride to and from school at times and also out to the DAO, or the Defense Attaché's office, where the basketball gym is. All of the kids ride here, but the traffic is wild and unpredictable. If you've seen images of Saigon traffic, you know that that's a little bit crazy, but apparently they did survive. Now, on February 4th, she wrote home, Chris is playing really good basketball now. They finally won a game and lost on Sunday by 1 point. Mike does well too, but his best sport is baseball, which he misses. John is now on the basketball team too. The boys are furiously playing basketball every day. Oh, this is February 24th, just about 5 weeks before we evacuated. Hopefully this weekend they will have a couple of games against the Chinese. Mike had his stitches from his appendix operation out last Friday, but feels good and is chomping at the bit to get back to basketball. It was a blow for his team because he is one of the best players. Chris is really some basketball player. He is a wee bit taller than me now and has a great body build. I guess I should say Chris was a great basketball player, as he is now out of action for a little while too. Tuesday, I went to watch the kids practice. As exciting as a real game. Phil went up to lay in a basket and Chris went up to try to block him, and they were both going hard. Suddenly, the two boys are rolling all over the floor. Evidently, as Phil was coming down and Chris was going up, Phil's elbow hit Chris in the eye. Phil thought he had broken his arm, and Chris's eyebrow was laid wide open, and another place was open on the lid. I was relieved that I was relieved to see only that damage once we could stop the blood. I thought that the eye itself had been damaged. So back I went to the emergency room at the hospital, where they put 7 stitches in the lid and eyebrow. Saturday we go back to check his eye and maybe remove the stitches, but he won't be able to play the game on Sunday, and he's on the main string. Our teams have been invited to go to Bangkok for a meet with the international school Bangkok team in April, and we are trying to raise some funds for them. We are having a bake sale this weekend and next, and hope to get some pledges or donations from the business community. It's time that they realize that we have a going American school here.